One type of random number generator experiment that's been conducted many, many times, hundreds of times, over the past 4 decades or so, since around the 1960s, has been a random generator that only produces sequences of random bits, zeros and ones, like flipping coins. And you would simply ask somebody to press a button, it would produce 200 bits. And you would ask them to say, well, try to make it produce more 1 bits than 0 bits. And when you take the entire body of literature, all of the hundreds of experiments that have been done, you can ask a single question. Did it matter that people were trying to push it towards ones or push it towards zeros? And the overall answer is yes, it does matter. That somehow intention is correlated with the operation, with the output of these random number generators, such that if you wish for more ones, somehow the generators produce more ones. The last analysis that I did, which looked at all of these experiments, the final analysis is 50,000 to 1. The odds against chance are 50,000 to 1 that the behavior of the random number generators would go in the direction that they did, that were consistent with what intention was wishing them to do.
So when they talk about in quantum physics being a completely arbitrary and random process, what they're not accounting for is the extraordinary effect of human thought, of human intention.
When the O.J. Simpson trial was going on, lots of people are watching television because of the courtroom drama that was unfolding. And Radin intuited that there must be a lot of intention going on.
I'll preface it with why we thought of doing that in the first place. Mm-hmm. So for 30 years, people in the laboratory have been taking the random number generator and the human and asking the human to try to interact with the generator, and we see small effects. And then after a while, after repeating it over and over again, basically it gets boring. Well, what else does it mean? One of the implications of what it means is that when we deal with stuff in the laboratory, it's an artificial and constrained environment. It's extremely difficult to produce real intention and real motivation in the laboratory. But that's where these big things happen. So we're looking for ways of getting out of the laboratory but still maintaining control over what we're measuring. So you take a random number generator into an environment like a group that's meditating. Long-term meditators, they know what they're doing, they become extremely coherent as a group. And I'm thinking, well, that would be a good place to take a random number generator, because maybe their intention is infiltrating out into the environment and creating a form of order, mind order, that would be reflected in matter. Well, so we'll take our form of matter, which is a random number generator. We know how to look for order in these things, because the only thing that can happen in a random number generator that's unusual is to become less random. So we use statistical ways of detecting that. And sure enough, my colleagues Roger Nelson, Dick Bierman, many others around the world have taken random number generators within groups that are doing coherent things, and sure enough, the random number generators become coherent. So the matter becomes ordered. And then they started thinking, well, what would happen if we're not dealing with groups of a couple dozen, but with hundreds of millions of people, all of whom had their attention focused suddenly on something? And as it turned out, that about a month from the time I had that thought was going to be the reading of the O.J. Simpson verdict. So this was an unusual point in human history, I think, in that people knew far in advance that within a fraction of a second, either saying the words guilty or not guilty, something of very high interest would occur, which would attract hundreds of millions of people live. So I figured, okay, we have to do this as an experiment then. I had 3 random number generators running in my lab, and I asked a colleague to run a generator in Amsterdam and another in Princeton. We have 5 random number generators going. I figured it's kind of a worldwide effect. Maybe we would see a change in the generators as we approached that moment in time when the verdict was read. So we ran the generators, afterwards evaluated the results, and sure enough, we saw a spike with odds of 1,000 to 1 actually 2 places. One was when the camera switched from outside the courthouse to inside the chambers. There was like a huge rise of attention, which was reflected in the random generators. And then at the moment that the verdict was read, there was this large spike of coherence in all 5 generators at once. So this was taking an idea that we had seen in the laboratory and scaling it up to the world at large, and it appeared to work.
This leads naturally to wonder, are people affecting the world of reality that they see? You betcha they are. Every single one of us affects the reality that we see, even if we try to hide from that and play victim. We all are doing it.